Procrastination didn't destroy my life all at once. It destroyed it silently, one postponement per day. I thought I needed motivation, but motivation never materialized. That's when I discovered the truth that Teruha had experienced firsthand. Procrastination is comfortable, but everything she touches dies. And if I wanted to walk again, I would have to become bigger than my own comfort zone. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to show you the exact path to break the poison of procrastination and rebuild your discipline. When I realized I was losing myself, I always said, "I'll do it later." Those 4 words became my unconscious mantra, my automatic response to anything that required effort, discomfort, or change. Want to start writing that book? I'll do it later. Need to have that difficult conversation? I'll do it later. Dream of learning a new skill? I'll do it later. Want to change careers, improve my health, strengthen my relationships? Later, later, always later. And this later was a horizon that constantly moved further away, like a mirage in the desert that never materializes no matter how far you walk towards it. I lived in a hypothetical future that never arrived, while my real present slipped through my fingers like sand, wasted in perpetual waiting for a more convenient moment that would never exist. Until I realized my entire life was trapped in this later that never became now. It was a devastating revelation that hit me on an ordinary Tuesday when I looked back and realized I had the same goals, the same dreams, the same intentions I had 5 years ago. Nothing had changed. Nothing had progressed. I was exactly in the same place, only 5 years older, 5 years more tired, 5 years further from the person I wanted to become. All that time had passed, and I had absolutely nothing to show for it except an ever-growing collection of unfulfilled intentions, unexecuted plans, versions of myself that never left the drawing. Bored. I was losing not only time, I was losing myself, piece by piece, day after day of later. Procrastination is treacherous in a way that few things are. It doesn't arrive dressed as an obvious villain. It doesn't show up announcing, "I've come to destroy your dreams and waste your life." On the contrary, it comes disguised as a gentle friend, whispering comforting words. "Don't worry, you can do it tomorrow. Rest today. You deserve a break. You don't need to be so hard on yourself." It sounds like self-care. It sounds like compassion. It even sounds like wisdom. And that's why it's so dangerous, because you don't recognize the poison while you're drinking it. You think you're being kind to yourself when you're actually sabotaging yourself. You think you're resting when you're actually stagnating. You think you're waiting for the right moment when you're actually just running away from the inevitable discomfort of growing up. She wore the mask of calm, of patience, of the wisdom of not forcing things. She made me feel like I was being wise by waiting, mature by not acting impulsively, balanced by not pressuring myself. I justified my inaction with pseudo-spiritual philosophies about letting life flow and trusting the universe's timing. But beneath that calm and serene mask, there was no true peace. There was only a latent anxiety, a growing guilt, a suppressed sense of urgency that screamed louder and louder as the years went by, and I was still in the same place. The mask of calm protected me from having to admit the truth. I wasn't waiting patiently. I was paralyzed by fear. But behind it all, there is stagnation. Stagnant water that begins to smell bad, muscles that atrophy from lack of use, dreams that wither from inaction, potential that fades from lack of cultivation. I was like a plant in a very small pot with roots beginning to curl up because there was no room to grow, but convincing myself that I was perfectly fine in that cramped pot. The truth that procrastination hid was this: Every day I chose later instead of now was a day when my life didn't move forward, my soul didn't expand, my potential wasn't realized. And all those days were accumulating into weeks, months, years of an unlived life, of an unfulfilled person, of unexplored possibilities. I was dying slowly, not physically, but in the most tragic way. I was dying in terms of who I could have been, should have been, wanted to have been. And procrastination was the cause of death, wearing its gentle mask of calm until the very last moment. The comfort that kept me trapped. I always sought the easiest, quickest, least uncomfortable path, as if my life were a game where the objective was to minimize any feeling of difficulty or tension, facing a difficult conversation or avoiding conflict. I chose avoidance, waking up early to train or staying another hour in the warm bed. I chose the bed, taking that challenging course that could open doors or watching another season of a series without thinking. I chose the series, trying something new where I might fail or remaining in the familiar zone where I felt safe. Safety, always safety. Each choice individually seemed insignificant, seemed merely to be kind to myself, even sensible. But the accumulated pattern of these thousands of small choices was drawing the map of my life. And this map led nowhere, only eternally circling around the same safe and familiar territory. Comfort became my favorite prison, one that I decorated and embellished myself to look less like captivity and more like a sanctuary. I had 1,000 justifications for every choice to avoid discomfort. I need to take care of my mental health became an excuse to never do anything that challenged me emotionally. I'm respecting my limits became a license to never expand those limits even an inch. I'm practicing self-care became synonymous with irresponsible self-indulgence. And the most insidious part is that these concepts, mental health, limits, self-care, are genuinely important and valid. But I was distorting them, using them as shields against growth instead of tools for growth. I was using wellness vocabulary to justify my stagnation, and that made me feel virtuous while wasting my life. Comfort wasn't true rest, the kind that restores and renews your energy so you can come back stronger. Real rest has a purpose. You stop so you can come back better. But what I called comfort didn't have that regenerative goal. It was pure escape. It was the kind of rest where you wake up feeling more tired than when you started. It was watching screen after screen without really processing anything. It was eating without tasting. It was oversleeping and waking up groggy. It was procrastinating until the last minute and then rushing through everything and doing it poorly. There was nothing restorative about it. It was just anesthesia, a way of not feeling the discomfort of being alive, of having responsibilities, of having unrealized potential calling to me. It was like taking painkillers for pain that's a sign you need surgery. The temporary relief only allows the real problem to worsen untreated. And each escape made me smaller, weaker, more dependent on that very escape in a self-perpetuating vicious cycle. Because every time I chose comfort over growth, I reinforced the internal narrative that I couldn't handle discomfort, that I was too fragile for challenges, that I needed to be protected from anything difficult. And then, the next time a growth opportunity arose, it seemed even more daunting because I was even more unconditioned to handle challenges. It was like avoiding the gym because your muscles are weak, but your muscles only get weaker the more you avoid it. My capacity to tolerate discomfort was atrophying, my resilience was shrinking, my self-confidence was evaporating. And the smaller I became, the more I needed comfort to avoid feeling how much I had diminished. I was becoming a smaller and smaller version of myself, fitting into an increasingly tight box that I myself built with each choice to avoid, to run away, to seek the easy way out. My dreams were shrinking to fit the size of my comfort zone. My ambitions were being pruned so as not to demand anything that would make me feel uncomfortable. My life was contracting instead of expanding, and I was watching it happen, feeling it happen, knowing it was happening, but feeling powerless too. Stop it, because escape had become my default pattern, my automatic reflex, my only coping mechanism. And the most terrifying part was realizing that if I continued down this path, in 10 years, I would be an even smaller shadow than I already was. So small that I might disappear completely. So weak that the slightest breeze would knock me down. So dependent on comfort that any deviation from the safe routine would shatter me into pieces. The comfort I thought was protecting me was actually slowly destroying me, gently suffocating me, killing me with soft pillows instead of sharp knives. But the end result would be the same, an unlived life, unrealized potential, a person who existed but was never truly alive. Teruha's lesson: those who do not act grow old inside. While studying Teruha, a legendary geisha from the late 19th century who lived to be 90 and reinvented herself at least 5 times throughout her life, I realized something that completely shattered my carefully constructed excuses. She started as a poor apprentice in a humble okiya, became one of Tokyo's most sought-after geisha, then turned to dance teaching when her acting days ended, then opened her own tea house, later became a mentor to young geisha, and finally in her later years wrote memoirs that became historical landmarks. Each transition was radical. Each reinvention required her to abandon an established identity and start as a novice in uncharted territory. And what impressed me most was not only that she did it so many times, but that she never waited to be ready. She never waited to have all the necessary skills. She never waited to feel confident or prepared. You never wait for the perfect moment that never comes. She moved, and the movement magically created a path beneath her feet. When she decided to open her own tea house, she had no financial capital, no business experience, no guarantees of success. But she moved anyway. She took the first step, then the second, and somehow each step revealed the next. Each action opened a door she didn't even know existed. It wasn't a linear and clear path from beginning to end. It was hazy, uncertain, frightening. But she understood something fundamental that I had forgotten. You don't need to see the whole staircase to climb the first step. You don't need to have the complete map to begin the journey. In fact, the map only reveals itself as you walk. Clarity comes through action, not before it. And I had spent years waiting for clarity. Before acting, when I should have been acting to create clarity. I understood that discipline doesn't stem from inspiration. That was the revelation that shattered my favorite narrative, the one where I waited to feel motivated, inspired, excited before acting. I thought disciplined people were those who naturally felt the urge to do difficult things, who woke up excited to train, study, and work towards their goals. But studying Teruha, reading about her routines, understanding her philosophy, it became clear she didn't do things because she felt like it. She did things regardless of whether she felt like it or not. She didn't wait for inspiration. She acted, and sometimes inspiration came later as a consequence of the action. And often inspiration didn't even come. But she continued anyway because she had committed to herself that she would do it. Her discipline didn't depend on her feelings. It was a choice she renewed every day, regardless of her internal emotional climate. Discipline is born from the decision to no longer be a slave to my own mental laziness, my fluctuating moods, my resistance to discomfort. It is born from the moment you look in the mirror and say, I will no longer let my momentary feelings determine my entire life. I will no longer be held hostage by, I don't feel like it. I will no longer wait to feel ready, because that feeling will never come. It's a line in the sand, a boundary established, a declaration of sovereignty over oneself. And the most interesting thing is that the more you act despite not feeling like it, the more you train a new neural pathway that eventually makes the action increasingly automatic. Teruha, at 70, didn't need Herculean willpower to maintain her daily practices. They were so integrated into her identity that doing them was easier than not doing them. But she only reached that point because in her 20s, 30s, and 40s, she repeatedly acted against resistance, building the muscle of discipline repetition after repetition. The phrase that completely changed my perspective was attributed to Teruha in her memoirs. Those who do not act age inside. It's not about chronological age. It's about the vitality of the soul, about staying alive while you are alive. She saw 30-year-old women who were already old inside, dead in spirit, stagnant in habits, closed to possibilities, rigid in their ways. And she saw 70-year-old women who were young inside, curious, open, constantly evolving, willing to learn and adapt. The difference wasn't in the years lived, but in the willingness to continue acting, growing, changing, challenging oneself. Every action is a vow that you are still alive, still participating, still creating your life instead of just letting it happen to you. And every procrastination, every choice of comfort over growth, every later instead of now is a small death, an internal aging, a shrinking of your essential vitality. Teruha, at 89, was more alive than I was at 30 because she never stopped moving, never stopped acting, never stopped reinventing herself. And I realized with painful clarity, I was aging inside at 30 because I had stopped acting a long time ago. I was just existing, just surviving, just waiting, waiting to be ready, waiting to be sure, waiting to feel like it. And while I waited, my soul was wrinkling, my vitality was drying up, my possibility of an extraordinary life was withering. Teruha taught me that the fountain of youth is not in creams or surgeries. It's in the courage to keep acting, to keep moving, to keep creating your path through constant action, regardless of age, regardless of fear, regardless of whether you feel ready or not. When my body started to scream, even without doing anything, I was always tired. It was a paradox I couldn't understand for a long time. How was it possible to be exhausted when my routine consisted mainly of avoiding doing things? I would wake up tired after 9 hours of sleep. I spent the day dragging an invisible weight that made every movement slow and heavy. At night, I would collapse on the sofa completely exhausted. But when I went to bed, insomnia would come to visit me, my mind racing too fast to rest. It was a constant fatigue that no amount of sleep solved, that no coffee combated, that vacations didn't alleviate. I attributed it to 1,000 external things: my job, my diet, my genetics, modern life, the general stress of existing. But there was a connection I refused to make. This exhaustion had everything to do with everything I wasn't doing, with all the vital energy being drained by chronic inaction. It was a weariness that didn't come from the body itself, but from the profound stagnation that had settled into every area of my life. My body was physically capable. I didn't have any illness that justified this constant fatigue. But there was an internal toxicity that no blood test could detect. The toxicity of a life not lived, of dreams postponed, of unrealized intentions, of wasted potential. It was as if every project I didn't start, every goal I didn't pursue, every better version of myself I didn't become, accumulated within my system like emotional and spiritual garbage. And this accumulated garbage created an invisible but devastating inflammation that manifested as deep and relentless fatigue. My body was literally weighed down by everything I carried but didn't process, everything I promised but didn't deliver, everything I wanted but didn't seek. Procrastination consumes energy in a counterintuitive way that took me years to understand. I thought procrastinating was conserving energy. After all, doing nothing should be less tiring than doing something, right? Wrong. Completely wrong. Procrastination is one of the most energetically expensive acts that exist because it keeps you in a constant state of unresolved tension. It's like holding a 5-kilogram weight. In the first few seconds, it's easy, but if you keep holding it for hours, your muscles start to tremble and ache terribly. Procrastination is exactly that. Mentally holding on to all the things you should be doing but aren't, keeping them suspended in your consciousness, spending constant mental energy carrying them, avoiding them, justifying them, but never simply putting them down by completing them, or never tackling them in the first place by consciously refusing them. Not through action, but through the accumulated guilt of everything I failed to do. That was the real energy vampire, the insidious guilt that grew a little each day, with each later, with each broken promise to myself. Each morning I didn't wake up at the time I had promised myself. Each workout I skipped, each creative project I postponed, each difficult conversation I avoided. Each of these inactions generated a small debt of guilt that was added to the growing balance. And carrying this accumulated guilt was like dragging invisible chains. No one else could see them, but I felt the weight with every step. My nervous system was constantly activated in a low-stress state because a part of me knew, always knew, that I was repeatedly betraying myself. And this suppressed knowledge constantly consumed energy, like a program running in the background on a computer that drains the battery even when you think you're in power-saving mode. I began to notice the specific physical signs of this procrastination fatigue. A feeling of heaviness in my limbs, even in the morning, as if my arms and legs were made of lead. A constant mental fog where simple thoughts required disproportionate effort. An inability to feel genuine enthusiasm for anything, as if all my emotions were filtered through a layer of gray cotton. Chronic muscle tension, especially in my shoulders and neck, my body literally carrying the weight of unfulfilled responsibility. And most revealing, the fatigue worsened dramatically when I was close to doing something productive, as if my body were conspiring with my procrastination to keep me inert. But when I finally forced myself to act, when I completed something I had postponed, there was an immediate release of energy, a lightness that arose from nowhere. This showed me the brutal truth. My tiredness didn't come from lack of rest. It came from lack of action. My body was screaming not, "Stop doing so much," but "Stop doing nothing." I was pleading not for more sleep, but for more life lived, for energy and motion instead of stagnant energy. Every cell of my being wanted to be used for something meaningful. And when I denied them that purpose, when I wasted my vitality in perpetual procrastination, they responded with fatigue as a form of protest, like a desperate cry. Please, let us serve something greater. Please, stop wasting us. Please live the life you have instead of just taking up space until you die. I've become an expert at making excuses. Not today. Those two words became my automatic refrain, my default response to anything that required effort or change. Want to start that important project? Not today. I'm too tired. Need to make that difficult phone call? Not today. I'm not in the right emotional state. Should I wake up early to train? Not today. I need more rest. With each not today, I promised myself that tomorrow would be different, that tomorrow I would be more prepared, more rested, more motivated. But when tomorrow arrived, it became today again, and the cycle repeated, endlessly. I had become a master at procrastination, at pushing responsibilities onto a future version of myself that would theoretically be more capable, stronger, more ready. But that version never arrived because I never took the actions that would create it. Not now. That was my variation on the same theme, applied to specific moments throughout the day. About to start working on something important, but I saw a notification on my phone. Not now, I'll just check this quickly first. Felt the urge to act on a creative idea. Not now, let me finish watching this first. Recognized I should have a serious conversation with someone. Not now, the timing isn't right. I had developed an uncanny sensitivity for detecting any reason why now wouldn't be the ideal time. There was always something, some minor task that needed to be done first, some emotional state that wasn't perfectly aligned, some external condition that wasn't ideal. And the more I practiced this art of finding reasons not to act now, the more skilled I became at creative sabotage, at building elaborate barriers between myself and any meaningful action. When I'm feeling better. This was my favorite excuse because it sounded so reasonable, so responsible even. When I'm less anxious, then I'll do it. When I'm more confident, then I'll try. When I'm in better shape, then I'll go to the gym. When I'm more financially stable, then I'll invest in myself. When I'm emotionally stronger, then I'll face that challenge. I was constantly postponing my life to an improved version of myself that would only exist if I stopped postponing and started acting. It was a perfect trap. I couldn't get better without acting, but I refused to act until I was better. And so I remained trapped in an endless loop of waiting for a transformation that would never come because transformation doesn't happen passively. It happens through repeated action precisely when you don't feel ready for it. I repeated these phrases as if they were a protective mantra, as if by pronouncing them I was being wise and cautious instead of cowardly and procrastinating. They became so automatic that I didn't even realize when I was using them anymore. They were verbal reflexes that arose instantly whenever I encountered something uncomfortable or challenging. And the worst part is that I sincerely believed them. They weren't conscious lies. I genuinely thought that today genuinely wasn't the right day, that now genuinely wasn't the appropriate time, that I genuinely needed to be in a better state before starting. My entire belief system had been built around the idea that perfect timing exists, that there is an ideal moment where everything aligns and action becomes easy, and that waiting for that moment is wisdom instead of disguised procrastination. But excuses protect you from absolutely nothing. That was the brutal truth that finally penetrated my carefully constructed defenses. I thought I was protecting myself from failure by not trying, protecting myself from rejection by not putting myself out there, protecting myself from disappointment by not having expectations that came with action, protecting myself from judgment by remaining invisible. But what exactly was I protecting myself from? From living? From growing? From discovering my potential? From having a life worth living? My excuses were like a shield I held so tightly that I forgot I was using both hands to hold the shield, which meant I had no free hands to build anything, create anything, achieve anything. I was so busy protecting myself from imaginary risks that I couldn't do anything real or meaningful. They only hide the deeper, more terrifying truth I didn't want to admit. I was afraid to act, afraid to try and fail, afraid to push myself and discover that my best wasn't good enough, afraid to step out of my comfort zone and find I couldn't handle the discomfort, afraid that if I really tried and it didn't work out, I would have no more excuses. I would have to face the possibility that maybe I simply wasn't capable. As long as I didn't try, I could keep alive the fantasy that I could if I wanted to. I'm just choosing not to want to now. But if I really tried and failed, that fantasy would shatter. So it was safer, more comfortable, to remain in the realm of untested possibilities, unverified abilities, eternally latent but never manifested potential. My excuses were a smokescreen hiding my fear, and the more time I spent generating more elaborate excuses, the less time I had to spend facing the fact that the only real obstacle between me and the life I wanted was my own cowardly refusal to act despite the fear, to move despite the uncertainty, to try despite the very real possibility of failure.